Hi, welcome to the Whitey White Guy Show. I'm Whitey, and today I'm going to review a film called Stone Cold that came out in 1991. It stars Brian Bosworth, Lance Henriksen, and William Forsythe, followed by a bunch of people you might have seen before, but probably wouldn't know their name. I don't. Um, Brian Bosworth, you need to understand real quick, was drafted into the NFL by the Seattle Seahawks in like 1989, played for 3 years, tore up his shoulder, retired from football, and went into acting. Never got really super huge, but in the early 90s, he was in a few films, and I thought did a respectable job for a guy who's not a professional actor. So, in this film, Brian Bosworth, he was a middle linebacker, outside linebacker. He's a big guy. He's like 6'4", 200 and some ungodly amount of pounds, just muscles on top of his muscles. And in the late 80s, early 90s, he had a slew of big-bodied guys in these one-man wrecking machines where they were cops taking out the bad guys, one of the bad guys taking out other groups of bad guys. There were a bunch of these. Stallone made a few of them. There were a bunch, Van Damme, you name it. Schwarzenegger, of course. Dolph Lundgren. And Brian Bosworth had his run in. Again, it's a film called Stone Cold. And the idea is that Bosworth plays a guy named Joe Stone, ultimately they call him. Anyway, he's a cop of some nature, but he's got a crazy ass haircut, doesn't wear a uniform, and at the beginning of the film, there's a scene in a grocery store where three coked up dudes, at least the one dude's coked up 80s style, and they're doing an armed robbery of a grocery store in a way that does not happen for a reason, and it goes on forever. It's like and then the moment it's over, the cops show up, like the second the shooting's done. But he's on suspension, and it's a scene that's straight out of another film that Stallone made called Cobra, where he's in a grocery store fighting the bad guys. Then the next scene, he's in his Bosworth. He's in his apartment, and he's making food. And instead of having a puppy dog, he's got a big old lizard. And then the FBI shows up, and they want him to, even though he's a cop who's on 3 weeks suspension, they want him to go after a biker gang. And of course, he initially turns it down. Of course, eventually, the FBI is like, well, if you don't do what we want, that 3 week suspension will be a 6 month with no pay. After he got done saying, whoever you send is going to get killed. So it's kind of like, dude, do your 6 months. Anyway, he ends up going with it begrudgingly initially and going after the biker gang. But the first two scenes, see, it's a whole lot of you've already seen this before. Like they're not even trying. A lot of Bosworth got a Razzie for this. I thought he didn't do like a bad job as an actor. It just was such a goofy role. How do you really be convincing here? So he ends up showing up. The bike. He goes with the undercover FBI agent. He doesn't blend at all. He's a germaphobe. He's a dork. And Bosworth goes in to get in with this guy named Ice, played by William Forsythe. Forsythe, before they can get into a fight, gets into a fight because they're at a stripper bar. The bikers are doing bouncer work at the stripper bar. And Bosworth steps in with some fisticuffs to try to win him over in a way that just, like, no. But the one more friendly biker guy's like, thanks for saving my butt. Forsythe doesn't trust him. William Forsythe, who's a crazy guy in this movie, is also the voice of reason for like everybody. Even though he's like supposed to be the most acutely crazy and kill a guy at the drop of a hat, he's also the most rational through the whole film. And we should tell you something. So Bosworth ends up fighting another guy in a brawl. Then he like gets into a motorcycle race, trying to win over the trust and faith of the bicycle band group, the gang, which none of which makes a lick of damn sense. And then he just comes down way too hard, trying to prove himself time and time again. And at one point, they don't use PCP, they say P2P for a drug. I don't know if that was a thing. I always heard PCP. I don't know if it's a different thing. And he's like, I got a mountain of P2P. And it's like, you just met him. And they went with it. And it's just like... So anyway, the biker gang, one of their guys they're going around like killing At one point, one biker gang guy like guns down a priest at church with a shotgun, just levels him. He ends up going to prison. It's like the third one of these they've done that they never really, that I recall, explain why. They're just out for carnage. Meanwhile, they're worried about a district attorney who just got elected governor over the course of the events of the film, and he's the governor-elect. They're going to go take this guy out. So it's like, if you're worried about getting caught, hey, here's an idea. How about a low profile? Instead of going on killing sprees, that will mess up your drug traffic. And then they're intruding on the turf of one group of Italian mobsters. They end up teaming up with the other side to go against that side. And it's just convolution all over the place. And from there, it's a shoot 'em up. It's a there's a lot of shoot 'em up. It's basically the whole premise and plot is very flimsy excuse to have a muscled up Brian Bosworth go around and beat the crap out of people. That's it. Of like beating up the mob, beating up bikers, shoot 'em up. And if that's what you want, the film doesn't let you down. You got plenty to go on there. But if you want like plot that makes sense, no, not for you, guy. Not for you. You want something you've never seen before? This is cut by the numbers. Every other film you've ever seen. So again, no plot. Don't think. If you want a muscled up dude beating the crap out of people, shooting everything up with guns, this is your film. And in that respect, it doesn't do a bad job. I don't know who directed it. I'm not going to look it up. But it's, visually speaking, actually not that poorly done at all. In terms of shot selection, lighting, depth, continuity. Surprisingly good. There's a couple times where you're like, okay, that stuntman is not the guy who fell out. There's a lot of dudes falling out of windows. They get shot, and they fall out of a window. There's a lot of that. And a couple times like, okay, that was a stunt guy. You couldn't even hide that one. Nor did they try. And then at one point they go get this ex-helicopter pilot guy, and they steal a Huey in a way that would never ever happen. Then they kill 2 National Guardsmen, and it's like, okay, so the FBI is trying to do a drugs thing. They're trying to set them up to buy drugs so they can get a witness to testify and nab them for the drugs. Once they've killed priests in their own church, National Guardsmen, the Italian mob, the whole federal government would come down on them like a blizzard. Like they would bail on the whole drug thing that moment. And then it just like The Departed and every other movie like it, it's like your guy just witnessed that murder. Arrest him! Like you got him! You got a guy who's law enforcement who was an eyewitness to these killings. Arrest him right there. But no, we got to get him on the drug charges. Or something. I don't know. So it just, nothing about this film makes a lick of damn sense. Smoke a doobie. Watch this movie. It is fun. It's not sane, but it's fun. It is an action shoot 'em up. There's bits where, like, when you first meet the bikers, they put a beer can on their shoulder. Oh, the TV went off and shoot the beer can. That was the TV. Come back. I need to fix that so it doesn't do that. I don't know how. So anyway, the fighting, the shoot 'em up, it's fair and good. There's a pretty girl, and at the beginning of the film, Bosworth has a pretty girl in her bed when the FBI guy comes over to his house, and then she's never seen or heard from again. But now he's into this other chick with what happened to her. I don't know. Nothing that's happening makes sense for the better part of a minute before you're on to the next thing, which contradicts the last thing. So again, plot, synopsis, no, just muscle guys shoot 'em up. There you go. A lot of shit gets blown up. The helicopter gets blown up. A bunch of vehicles get blown up. Bikes get blown up. That's fun. So if you're like, the popcorn butter replaced your brain, check out this movie. Because it's a lot of fun. If you think, don't. Just don't do it. Why? So, but again, within that framework, it's fine for what it is. This review came from Eric over at Hey Internet Eric here and Frenzy. They reviewed it, and I agree with what Frenzy said. He's like, William Forsythe's character is begging Lance Henriksen, who's like in charge of the gang, to understand that this guy's a cop. And he wants to go with it for no reason whatsoever. And so everybody dies. But the love interest gets shot in the head. So this is actually amazing for what it is, because instead of the good guy getting the bad guy and getting the girl, it's actually the his partner, the skinny dorky guy, who kills the bad guy, and then the love interest gets her brains blown out. So it's actually quite phenomenal for a really stupid movie, but cut by the numbers, scratch and sniff, just not. I don't know. You really got to find a way to turn your brain off for this one. So that's Stone Cold with Brian Bosworth. I don't think he did a bad job as an actor. He was just in such a crazy film, like, you're not going to sell that very well. The scenarios were so insane, but his performance wasn't bad. Lance Henriksen does a really good job as the main bad guy. That's the enjoyable part of this film. Is William Forsythe, Lance Henriksen, guys like Tony Pierce are in this film from given enjoyable performances, and at times believable performances. One point where Tony Pierce gets blown up with a hand grenade, which is wholly unbelievable. And then his biker buddies come to visit him in the hospital, and he's actually begging him, just kill me. And you're like, dude, that's actually like crazy depthful for this kind of film. He's like, man, just please kill me. And then William Forsythe just breaks the TV because the governor-to-be is on there. So there's actually some pretty good, intense moments. I dare say good performances, but keep that within the framework of how insane the film is. So not good performances, Morgan Freeman, Shawshank Redemption, but good performances within the framework of this film. And guys are supposed to be over the top. They're supposed to be crazy pants, and they did a good job with it. Lance Henriksen, William Forsythe. There's a few other guys you would recognize, but I'm not going to call them out because you'd have to be older than me to be like, oh yeah, I know that guy. So that's it here for What a White Guy Show. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm going to work on the lighting. This is getting kind of cray. Feels like I should do like a horror special, like, Tales from the Crypt. Works. But, yeah, Stone Cold, if you're into the Stallone, Schwarzenegger, muscle guys shoot 'em up films, this is one of the fair to Midland ones. I remembered it from way back. Okay. But it's not a good movie as a whole. So anyway, I'm out of here. I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.